The Wild West was a land where justice was carried on the hip, and survival meant pulling the trigger faster than the next man. Today, we'll step into the dusty streets and saloon doors to meet 50 legendary gunfighters, outlaws, lawmen, and legends whose names still echo in history. During the June 1893 Battle of Stone Corral near Visalia, California, notorious train robber John Sontag's stomach and shoulder wounds were so bad, he tried to kill himself by firing a shot into his own head, only making his misery worse. In this photo, Sontag was surrounded by lawmen and citizen possemen. He was moved to the jail in Fresno, where he died on July 3, 1893, shortly after his 32nd birthday. Joe Fowler was a notorious killer, rumored to have murdered 30 to 40 people. Operating as a deputy sheriff, he often targeted individuals on behalf of corrupt politicians. He was known for his ruthlessness, killing even unarmed prisoners and burning his half-brother alive. Fed up with Fowler's reign of terror, a Socorro mob lynched him in 1884. The Earp brothers, Virgil, Wyatt, and Morgan Earp. In 1881 Tombstone, Arizona, tensions flared between the Earp brothers and the outlaw cowboys. A 30-second gunfight erupted near the OK Corral, leaving 3 cowboys dead. Though hailed as lawmen, the Earps faced controversy and revenge, cementing the clash as the Wild West's most famous shootout. Reluctant gunfighter Ike Clanton fled the most famous gunfight in history, the gunfight behind the OK Corral in 1881. Clanton had a history of conflict with the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday, and the events leading up to the shootout often involved Clanton's brash behavior and threats. After the gunfight, where his brother and the McClorys were killed, Clanton tried to implicate the Earps, but his testimony was deemed unreliable. He was later killed while resisting arrest for cattle rustling. Wanted for allegedly killing a U.S. Marshal in 1887, Ned Christie resisted arrest for nearly 5 years. While he hid out in his fortified house in Cherokee Nation, in 1892, Posse members attacked with cannon and dynamite. Christie ran toward the Posse and was shot and killed. This photograph shows their trophy on a cellar door. January 15, 1896. Marshal Bill Tillman single-handedly captured gang leader Bill Doolin at a bathhouse in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, then hauled him back to Oklahoma Territory. This photo shows Tillman years earlier during the bloodless Dodge City War of 1883. After a long career, he was tragically killed in the line of duty at age 70. Western lore records Tom Horn as a gunfighter, and he did wield a gun during Arizona's Pleasant Valley War in 1887, but he was more accurately a hired gunman who usually shot his victims from ambush. He's shown here in the jail in Cheyenne, Wyoming, before his 1903 execution for the murder of 14-year-old Willie Nickel. A quick-tempered murderer, Bill Longley got his start killing a former slave in Texas in 1868. His kills included his boyhood friend Wilson Anderson and a hunting buddy George Thomas, both in 1875, and fellow outlaw Lou Schroyer and Longley's landlord, both in 1876. The dangerous gunfighter paid the ultimate price at the end of a noose in 1878. Wild Ben Raymond, a mine guard, posing in Leadville, Colorado. Feared for a draw as quick as lightning and a temper just as unpredictable, his name was whispered across the frontier. Legend says he never lost a duel, eventually vanishing into the desert. This photograph shows James Wild Bill Hickok with his cross-draw Navy Colts. The first man he killed was David McCandless at the Rock Creek Station in Nebraska in 1861. He also famously killed Dave Tutt in 1865 in a duel. Instead of the face-to-face fast draw duel, the two men stood in a sideways dueling stance. This duel probably inspired the showdown at noon popularized in movies. Tom Blackjack Ketchum, shown here after he was captured and his right arm amputated, and shortly before he was hanged in 1901 for attempted train robbery. The citizens of New Mexico Territory were so mad at the daring of train robbers that they made Ketchum pay with his life, marking him as the only person who suffered capital punishment for felonious assault upon a railway train. Richard Little Dick West, who robbed banks with Bill Doolin's gang and bungled up train robberies with Al Jennings's gang, met his end on April 13, 1898, when a posse headed by Deputy U.S. Marshals Bill Tillman and Heck Thomas shot him dead outside Guthrie, Oklahoma Territory. The lawman's most famous kill did not come from a gun battle. In 1881, he sneaked into Pete Maxwell's house and shot notorious outlaw Billy the Kid to death. His action brought him fame but also sparked controversies, as Billy was seen by many as a charismatic and symbolic figure of the Wild West. George Redbuck Waitman also robbed banks with Bill Doolin's gang. After numerous failed captures of Waitman, a posse finally got their man in a shootout on March 4, 1896. One of the most notorious Hispanic outlaws in Old West history, the California bandit Tiburcio Vasquez, escaped the law after numerous gun battles. But a posse finally caught up with him in 1874 at a former camel driver's ranch house. He was hanged in 1875 for his role in the Tres Pinos raid 2 years earlier that resulted in the deaths of 3 bystanders. In the film A Debtor to the Law, real-life robber Henry Starr played himself in a recreation of the bank robberies in Stroud, Oklahoma. That shootout with the town citizens had left Starr wounded and captured, while the rest of the gang escaped with the loot. John X. Baedler, who became known as Vigilante X, was a Montana vigilante and deputy U.S. Marshal. Baedler used fear more than a gun to get his man. The pint-sized hangman boasted he pursued and executed as many as 30 men of Henry Plummer's road agent gang that terrorized Montana's mining camps. Crawford Goldsby, an outlaw better known as Cherokee Bill and one of the most dangerous men terrorizing Indian Territory, shot anyone who got in his way. He even killed his own brother-in-law, Mose Brown, over an argument about hogs. Interestingly, another gunfighter and prisoner at the time, Henry Starr, unarmed Goldsby when he shot a guard while attempting to break out of jail in 1895. He was hanged for the murder of Ernest Melton the next year. During his cowhand days, Clay Allison accidentally shot himself in the foot while stampeding army mules as a prank in 1871. The children who surround him in the picture have no idea Allison will soon become a notorious gunfighter in New Mexico. A heavy drinker, Allison went on shooting sprees that possibly included his involvement in a mob that lynched Cruz Vega in 1875. 2 days later, he killed Vega's friend at the St. James Hotel in Cimarron. In 1887, while hauling supplies to his ranch, Allison was thrown from his wagon and run over by its rear wheel. Buckskin Frank Leslie shot it out with Billy Claiborne, one of the survivors of the gunfight behind the OK Corral. Just 1 year later, Claiborne got in an argument with Leslie, who mortally wounded Claiborne in a gunfight outside the Oriental Saloon. We don't know how Leslie met his end. He disappeared from public records in 1922. Born on August 14, 1851 in Georgia, Doc Holliday was a dentist who graduated from the University of Georgia at 20 years old. Diagnosed with tuberculosis, he moved to Arizona, abandoning his medical career to become a professional gambler and gunslinger. A close friend of Wyatt Earp, he became famous after participating in the shootout at the OK Corral in 1881. Holliday died on November 8, 1887, at age 36 inches in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Bud Ledbetter gained a reputation for his gunfighting skills, especially after the deputy U.S. Marshal assisted in bringing in 4 members of the train robbing Al Jennings' gang in 1897. Dallas Staudenmeier, shown here as Marshal in El Paso, Texas. He was an imposing force, standing 6 feet 4 inches. In 1881, the 4 dead in 5 seconds gunfight entered him into a feud with the Manning brothers. He resigned as city marshal in 1882 and became a deputy U.S. Marshal in July, only to be killed by James and Doc Manning on September 18th. Emmett Dalton was captured alive at the Coffeyville, Kansas bank raid in 1892. After 14 years in prison, Dalton relocated to the Los Angeles area, made a killing in real estate, and starred as himself in 1918's Beyond the Law. As the years went by, Emmett became a celebrity. Wearing a black hat, Emmett poses between the legendary lawman Charlie Siringo and showman Pawnee Bill. This Texas gunslinger was a known troublemaker who also used his gun talents on the side of the law. In 1883, King Fisher was acting sheriff of Uvalde County. He killed a stagecoach robbery suspect. The next year, while hanging out with his gunfighter friend Ben Thompson, Fisher got caught in the crossfire between Thompson and those feuding with him over his killing of a popular theater owner in San Antonio. John Ringo is more famously known for challenging Wyatt Earp and his friends to gun battles, but the authorities broke it up before Ringo could show his courage. By July 1882, Ringo was dead, apparently by his own hand, although some believe he was murdered by his enemies. A Mexican outlaw and folk hero in Arizona Territory, Agustin Chacon, was most known for a gunfight that took place after he and his gang robbed a store in Morenci, Arizona in 1895. Chacon's buddies were killed, but the posse captured him and took him to the jail in Clifton. Chacon was sentenced to hang in 1896, but he escaped jail the next year. In 1902, Chacon was recaptured. Chacon's hanging on November 14th was a big occasion. A 14-foot adobe wall was built around the scaffold so that only those with invitations could view the execution. While walking up the steps of the scaffold, he shook the hands of admirers who would soon watch him drop to his death. After his third prison term, Ezra Allen Minor, better known as Bill, moved to Canada and staged one of British Columbia's first train robberies in 1904. During another train robbery in 1906, he got in a brief gunfight with the Royal Northwest Mounted Police. He and his crew were arrested. Minor's story inspired 1983's The Gray Fox, starring Richard Farnsworth as the Outlaw. Texas John Slaughter represented the tough breed who tamed the southwest border country. Standing just 5 feet 6 inches with dark, penetrating eyes, he fought against all kinds of enemies across the West, fighting Comanches as a Texas Ranger, Union troops as a cavalryman, and outlaws as Cochise County Sheriff. The fearless lawman lived to the ripe age of 80. Members of the Dalton gang after Coffeyville citizens killed them during the botched bank robbery, October 5, 1892. The dead bandits were all rounded up, and a hay rack from a wagon was put on the ground, with hay underneath to prop it up. The bodies were placed on the rack, leaning against a stable wall next to the jail. Bob Ollinger was a frontier lawman, best known as the last victim of Billy the Kid. During the Kid's daring escape from the Lincoln County Courthouse in 1881, Bob Ollinger was feeding prisoners at the Wortley Hotel when he heard a shot across the street, coming from the jail. He hurried over, and Billy the Kid said, "Hello, Bob," from above. These were the last words he heard. Billy the Kid, one of the most famous outlaws of the Wild West era. Born Henry McCarty in 1859 in New York, he moved west young and quickly got involved in crimes such as cattle thefts and shootouts. Known for his ability to escape the law, Billy the Kid gained a legendary reputation. He died young at 21 in 1881 during a confrontation with Sheriff Pat Garrett. He remains a symbol of the rebellious spirit of the Wild West. Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch members pose for the photo in Fort Worth, Texas, 1900. They are active during the twilight of the Wild West. This image is known as the Fort Worth 5 photograph. James B. Jim Hawkins, Texas Ranger. Jim exemplifies the men who have served in the Texas Rangers over the past 200 years. As an original member of Company D, he represents the courage and dedication that built the Rangers' legendary reputation. April 5th was an eventful date in the gunfighting career of John Selman, the man most known for shooting down deadly killer John Wesley Hardin in 1895. On that day in 1894, Selman killed a former Texas Ranger named Bass Outlaw. On April 5, 1896, Selman got into a dispute with Deputy U.S. Marshal George Scarborough in El Paso, Texas, went into an alley to shoot it out, and lost. The lawman was 56 when he died. John Wesley Hardin is shown at age 18, having finished his cattle drive up the Chisholm Trail to Abilene, Kansas, in 1871. This Texas terror killed his first man at the age of 15 and may have killed as many as 50. During his desperado career, from the 1860s until his death in 1895, Hardin was recognized by his peers as the West's deadliest gunfighter.